Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Uplevel Your Life with Mindy. I am your host, Mindy Duff, and I have a special guest with me today. I'm going to be chatting with Hope Pedraza, and we are going to be all over the board today. We were just talking about our topic of the day. The topic du jour is going to be so many things because Hope covers so many different things. Let me tell you just a little bit about her. Hope is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, a certified holistic nutritionist, a Reiki practitioner, a human design guide, an NLP practitioner, and a hypnotherapist, as well as the founder of In Balance, a Pilates-based fitness franchise, and the host of her own podcast, Hopeful and Wholesome. She helps female entrepreneurs heal chronic symptoms, create balance and ease in the body, and with the combination of functional medicine and energy medicine, so they can live a life full of joy and fulfillment and impact. So, Hope, thank you for being here today.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I think you embody all of my favorite things because I'm here for all of the health and nutrition stuff, but then I also love that you have the Reiki in there and you have the human design, recognizing the energetic components of our health as well. So it's not just what you eat. It's not just the energy. It's all of it. So
exactly.
So tell us just a little bit in your own words what you do. I know I read a nice little bio for you, but I always like to hear people explain it in their own words.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I know it's a mouthful. It's a lot of things. And if you know anything about human design, I am like the full embodiment of a manifesting generator because I can't pick just one thing. I like to do all the things. Typically how I explain myself to people is my work is at the intersection of functional medicine and energy medicine. So I'm helping people, typically women. I've worked with people besides women, but mostly women who I work with, get to the root cause of chronic symptoms. And the root cause for me is, like, I always use air quotes, it's the real root cause. So it's looking at the physical and the energetic, because I believe that all of the things that are happening in our physical body all have their roots in our energetic emotional body. So for me, it's understanding, I want to understand what's going on in your physical body, but to really get to the root cause and like the underlying reason of why it's happening, we have to look at the energetic emotional body. And so that's what I do.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm here for all that. And I'm sure, are you familiar with Louise Hay and some of her work? Okay, so I reference that a lot on this podcast as well. In fact, today I've got something going on in my physical body right now. Nothing, I don't think, super serious, but my first thing to start searching up is, all right, what does Louise Hay say about this? It's my emotional issue underneath this, because we can treat the emotional or we could treat the physical, but you're going to get more bang for your buck if you do both. So
yeah. Exactly.
You have just so many different topics that you kind of, I guess we'll say, specialize in or like to talk about. And one of them jumped out at me as being really important because, gosh, off the top of my head, I could name easily 10 of my close friends and family who are on medication for thyroid problems. And people who are listening, if you are not on medication for thyroid problems, you also can probably list 10 new people. It's just so common. So I'm curious, you have a kind of a talking point here about the link between adrenals and the thyroid. And I just am a little curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah. No, I love this question and I love this topic. And it's funny you asked that. I did an Instagram live last week, and like I had things I wanted to talk about. I ended up going on this tangent talking about the thyroid and like the connection with the energetic and the physical body with the thyroid. So it's funny you're asking this. So when we're looking at just like the physiological piece of our thyroid and our adrenals, and the fact is that our thyroid and our adrenals have a really close, special relationship, and they have to be able to talk to each other and communicate with each other for both of them to work optimally. And I would say probably like kind of what you were just saying. I think like 90% of the women I work with have some sort of thyroid something, whether it's full on like diagnosis or they just have a slow functioning thyroid, they have Hashimoto's. The thyroid thing is rampant in women across the board. And I can give you my theory on that if you want to know it energetically. But we're talking about the physiological piece. The adrenals and the thyroid, like I said, have to talk to each other. And in a lot of cases, it's kind of like a chicken or egg situation. So it's like, okay, did my thyroid start malfunctioning and then my adrenals did, or did my adrenals start malfunctioning, which caused the thyroid to malfunction? And honestly, it doesn't really matter which started first. The fact is, we have to be able to address both of them. And when we're chronically stressed, and I think everybody listening probably knows like this on some level, when we're chronically stressed, we're constantly emitting cortisol, right, which is our stress hormone, and that comes from our adrenals. And so our adrenals, I feel like our adrenals and our liver are two of the hardest working organs in the body. Like, we put so much stress on them. And so when we're chronically stressed and stressing out our adrenals, it just, by default and the chain reaction of events, our thyroid is going to take a hit too. And so, yeah, I mean, there is this connection between the thyroid and the adrenals, and we have to be able to look at, but we can't. And this is, I mean, this is like going down a rabbit hole, probably another topic for another day. But this is kind of one of the gaps that conventional medicine leaves us in, is we can't compartmentalize parts of our body. Like, it's all connected. So, when conventional medicine is sending us to 48 different specialists, like, we need to put all those pieces together. Just addressing the thyroid is not going to fix, it's not going to fix it. It's just not. So we have to look at it holistically and really address all the pieces that are connected.
Yeah, and you kind of hinted at this, but I am curious your energetic
My theory.
reasoning for
Yeah, I'd love
why
to share.
are so many women affected by this, and
So
men,
this
but
is,
yeah.
yes, yes, men too, yes, but specifically women. And this is what I went on a rant on last week on my Instagram live. So, okay, so all of if you're familiar with the chakra system in the body, right? There's energy centers in the body, and if you're familiar with human design, there's energy centers in human design. It's related to the chakra system, and each of these energy centers is linked to a certain gland or organ in the body, right? That emits certain hormones. And so herein is kind of what I love, is putting these little puzzle pieces together of, like, what's happening in the physical body, and then let's connect that and look at, which energy center is being affected and all of that, the glands and the hormones. So your thyroid is associated with your throat center, your throat chakra, your throat center, however you want to say it. And when we think about what the throat center is responsible for, the throat center is it's speaking our truth. It's your manifested voice. It's speaking out loud your truth, your thoughts, your feelings, your vision, right? And so many women, this is something that we hold back on. We hold back from sharing our opinions. We hold back from using our voice. And really, what I think is, I really believe that this is like a multi-generational thing. And this is not like woo right now. This is like science. Science shows like we carry up to 7 generations of trauma within our cells, within our DNA. And that's stuff that we have to work through along with our own human experience and the trauma from our own human experience. And so when we look at it that way, we look at generations of women who have been silenced, who have been, women treated as property for generations and less than human. Like, we come from a long lineage of humans, females, who have been forced to shut their voice down. And so I really believe that we're in this generation that's kind of like reaping that, and this is kind of showing up, and we have that conditioning within ourselves and our DNA to be fearful of that, of sharing our voice and speaking our truth. And I worked with multiple clients, that two that I can think of specifically right now, like thinking about right now, that they came out of narcissistic relationships, and they were working with me. And this is, if you think about when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, like, that's one thing, you lose your voice, right? You lose your voice, you lose your power. And both of them had severe thyroid issues, metabolism issues, like, and all of that has to do with the throat center. So that's kind of my long-winded answer, but I really do think it's this combination of this kind of generational trauma that we carry as women in our DNA, and then just kind of conditioning from society that we aren't as bold as maybe we could be in speaking our voice and speaking our truth using our voice. And it's affecting how our thyroid is functioning.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theory, and I don't disagree with it at all. It makes me think of, we hear a lot of people pleasers. That's kind of a common
Mm,
phrase thrown out a
absolutely.
lot. And
Absolutely.
so that, I think, goes along with it. Again, I think
Mm-hmm.
we tend to see more females that would say yes. And most people pleasers know it. They'll tell you, oh,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
rock the boat. I hate it.
Mhm.
Like,
Avoid
I just want to,
confrontation.
yeah,
Yes.
avoid confrontation, keep the peace. That's me.
Mhm.
And so if you are that person who's like, yes, oh gosh, I do not rock the boat, I want to make sure everyone else is happy, and you also have a thyroid condition, you might want to look
There
into
could
that. I
be,
mean,
yes, that's it.
just
Yeah.
out of interest. Yeah,
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
so moving on just a little bit, because again, we've got we've got so many different things to cover here. So let's talk about mineral imbalances here. And now the thyroid and adrenals can be involved with this as well. So how is our gut and hormones and thyroids and adrenals and just overall health related to mineral imbalances?
Yeah, yeah. So minerals are one of the things. So as an FDNP, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, it's a mouthful. So FDNP is better. Um, I use functional labs to help kind of look at the physical pieces, right? And so one of my favorite labs to use is an HTMA, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis, which looks at the minerals. It looks at a lot of things, but looking at the minerals. And the minerals are the place I like to start, because when we're looking, from a scientific perspective, the minerals, you've probably heard this, your listeners might have heard this, the minerals are the spark plugs in the body, meaning that every reaction in the body has to start, it starts with the minerals. Like, they're the cofactors for your vitamins and your hormones and your enzymes. Like, it all starts with the minerals. So at a cellular level, when we want to look at what does it take to create balance in the body, of course there's a gazillion ways you can answer that, but at its core it starts at the minerals. That's what's happening in your cells. And so I want to look at the minerals first and foremost to see, at this foundational level, what's happening. And I like it too, because again, me wanting to connect the physical with the energetic body, I love it because when we're looking at the glands and the hormones, which, like I just said earlier, is connected to the chakra system, that's what minerals are what makes those things function. Like, we have to have the minerals for the hormones and the glands to function optimally. So it's really just putting all those pieces together. And so when we're looking at starting the kind of the first step of bringing balance to the body, we want to look at the minerals and how that's affecting. Because yeah, when you're looking at adrenals and thyroid and these things that kind of can initiate this cascade effect of physical things going on in the body, it's all about the minerals, and especially adrenals. I mean, we've mentioned adrenals a handful of times now, and two of the big minerals that I look at that are most important for this gland are sodium and magnesium. And like I said before, when we're chronically stressed and we're chronically constantly pushing out cortisol, it's just a strain on our adrenals, and it's really literally draining them of minerals. And magnesium and sodium are two of the quickest things to be depleted in the body. And I'm sure you hear a lot about magnesium, and magnesium is one of those minerals that's required for 500 to 600 different reactions in the body. So if we're depleting that the fastest, naturally, the other functions of the body are going to be slowed down or halted, or just dysfunctional if we're depleting magnesium, because our adrenals are just constantly overworked.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why, I mean, so few of us are getting enough magnesium. I mean,
Totally.
like it's almost
Yeah.
almost none of you listening, maybe one of you is getting enough magnesium if you're
Yeah,
taking a supplement.
exactly.
Otherwise, if you're not taking a magnesium supplement, you can just pretty much guarantee that you're deficient.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
just it's just is
It's
what it
just how it
is.
is. Yeah, it is how
Yeah.
it is. And I know, I am the first to tell you I am food first, and I'm a huge fan of supplements, and obviously I use it with my clients, but magnesium is one of those that, like, you really do have to supplement it. Like, our food quality is just not what it used to be. Magnesium comes from nutrient rich soil, which is not what our food is grown in. And so, like, just that, like you said, just kind of is what it is. Like, that's one of those that there's a handful of supplements that I tell my clients, like, this is like maintenance. These are the things that I think you should take indefinitely. And that's just one of them. Magnesium is one of them
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And sodium, I know when you mentioned the sodium, people are probably hearing that and thinking, oh, well, I'm supposed to cut back on sodium, or I have
Mm-hmm.
high blood pressure, or I
Mm-hmm.
try not to eat sodium. So talk about that just a little bit, and maybe about
Yeah.
the type of sodium that we should
Mm-hmm.
be eating.
Yeah, that's it. And then you said it's exactly it. And I think I had did a podcast episode on this last year, because I think sodium, it's kind of like carbs. Like, it's just one of those things that's been demonized for whatever reason. And I mean, at its core, I really think it's just misinformation. So when we're looking at sodium, yes, we hear about, sodium causes high blood pressure and heart attacks, heart disease, stroke, like, whatever. And the problem is not with the sodium. Our bodies need sodium. Like, we have to have, so like I
Yeah.
said, our adrenals use more sodium than any other part of the body. We have to have sodium chloride to make stomach acid. You have to have that to digest your food. Like, we have to have sodium. The problem is where we're getting the sodium from. And when you're getting it from table salt is essentially the equivalent of white sugar, right? It's been stripped of every nutritional value of all nutrients. It's just essentially just the sodium chloride. Whereas when you're getting unrefined, good quality sea salt, there's 80 to 90 other trace minerals in that little grain of salt. So you're getting all these other trace minerals that are shoving and pushing the sodium where it needs to go. It's moving things in and out of the cells. Whereas when you're just using that table salt, which is like, the bastardized version of salt, then it's your cells don't know what to do with it. So of course it's gonna, mess with how your blood flow and your blood vessels and your restriction of cells and what's going in and out of your cells. So it's not the sodium itself, it's the quality where you're getting it from. And yeah, that's a huge thing is I have clients where I'm telling them like, okay, we're going to put, Celtic sea salt in your water. And they're, oh, well, I'm not, it's like a total mindset shift because
Yeah.
been told for so long, but again, that's not the issue. And really, I mean, we think about what's causing inflammation when you think about like the types of food that has just regular table salt, it's the big processed food, right? So there's other things involved. It's not like we're blaming salt when that's really not the issue. But yeah, all in all, the moral of this story is like, it's just about where you get your salt, and it's the quality of the salt that you're taking. And I've had clients who, and my mom too, I've done some work with my mom that, dealing with things like headaches and a client a couple months ago, it was like fluid retention and stuff in her body, but she was totally like anti-salt. And I'm like, okay, this is a problem. Like she's trying to think she's doing a good thing with like, oh, I need to not eat salt and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, well, no, we just have to get it from the right place. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, the headache started going away and, things started to balance out. So it does make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also really quick wanted to touch on the fact that, you are a fan of some of these tests, like the hair
Mm-hmm.
tests for testing for minerals. If someone's like, well, I want to know before I just go out and start taking magnesium, I want
Yeah.
to test myself and see what my levels are. But I've encountered a lot of people that say, oh, well, I went to the doctor at my last
Mm-hmm.
physical and they did a blood draw and everything came back fine. But
Mm-hmm.
this ain't that, friends. So
Yeah,
Hope,
it's not.
can you talk just a little bit about why we do like hair
Yes.
testing and things like that
Yes.
versus just a blood draw?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought it up because it is an important distinction. And I talk to clients all the time, like too. It's like, oh yeah, I went to the doctor and the blood lab, everything was normal. So with an HTMA, the one we're talking about, it's a hair tissue mineral analysis. You're literally sending in some of your hair. Your hair is a tissue, so it's measuring what's in your tissues. When you go to get a blood draw, obviously you're looking at what's in your blood, and this is a totally different perspective of what's going on in your body. With any blood draw, a blood draw is just what's going on right now. It's like a blip in time, like acute, like right now, what's happening in your body. Not to say blood draws don't have their place. And then I do have a couple blood tests. That's the blood chemistry lab I run for some of my clients, so they do have their place. But when we're looking at things, for me specifically, like hormones and minerals, it's just not a good accurate look because you could do the same test tomorrow and it could say something totally different.
Yeah.
So with the HTMA, it's look at what's going on chronically in your body because it's measuring again from a tissue, which is your hair, rather than blood. So it's a chronic look at what's going on in your body. So it's gonna give you a more accurate picture of what's going on with your mineral levels. The other thing too to keep in mind, like getting a little sciencey, but when you're looking at there are some minerals that are intracellular, meaning they're supposed to be in your cells. When we're measuring it in a blood lab, it's not going to look at that. If it's in your blood, like it's almost going to be kind of like misinformation when you're getting a blood lab. Potassium, for example, I've had this happen multiple times with clients. Potassium is intracellular, meaning it's supposed to be in your cells. Well, they go get a blood draw and they're like, oh yeah, my potassium levels are really high when I got my blood draw. Like that's actually bad. And it means your body's not absorbing your potassium, right? And so you're just going to get a different look at things when you do it from this kind of more functional perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that little explanation, because I think that's something that most of the general population has no idea. We just think
Mm-hmm.
we just go to the doctor and they just check your
Mm-hmm.
blood, right?
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
sometimes that's okay and sometimes it's not. And I have
Exactly.
yet to come across, and I'm sure they're out there, but I have yet to come across just a general practitioner that says, "Oh, we should do a hair analysis."
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
they just
They just
don't.
don't.
It's just
Yeah.
not in their
Right.
scope,
Right.
I guess. I don't know.
Exactly. Yes.
So let's talk now about the power of bio-individuality, because that was a fun word to say. I'm going to say it again. Bio-individuality and what that means for your health. Talk about this a little bit.
Yeah. So this basically it just means there is no one size fits all anything for your body. And that's really and truly kind of at the core of why I have like 85,000 modalities I put together into my, what I do with clients is for that reason. It's like, how can we individualize, like maximize this individual piece? Because our bodies are so different. And I know, I've been down the road too, where you do, the diet and do the trendy things, you do all these things that worked for all these other people. And you're like, well, why doesn't it work for me? It's because we're so different. Our bodies are so different. And so like, I think at this point we know that there's no one size fits all diet, but we still fall into the same path of like, oh, well, this worked for these people. So I feel like it has to work for me. When it's like our physical bodies are so different from each other, our emotional bodies are, we come from different environments and different traumas and different emotions and different upbringings and different conditioning. Like all of these things are going to affect how your physical body's working, and it's going to affect how receptive your physical body is to certain things we're doing to it, like the diet or the supplements. And so, I have women I talk to that are so frustrated because they've tried all these things and nothing's working, or they're working with me and it's like, well, this isn't working yet. Like we have to figure out what is the piece that's not being receptive to what we're putting at. So like and then again, this is why we tie in the emotional energetic piece. What is the emotional energetic piece? Like what patterns are kind of underlying that are keeping your nervous system in this state where it's not receptive to what we're doing? Like how are your hormones working that's making it that this is happening? Like we have to look at things at so many different levels because we are so different. And I think that, with all these like the biohacking things, like there's so many trendy things, biohacking things that we think are, oh, this has to be good for everybody, but it's not necessarily the case. And I have to have conversations with clients that, like, speaking of adrenals, you've mentioned this multiple times now, who, they want to do the cold plunging and, the HIIT workouts or whatever. But it's like, okay, well, if your adrenals are already tanked, then you are putting way more stress on those already
Yeah.
stressed out adrenals. So, like, again, you have to look everything so objectively and really understand your body, which is why I love tying human design into my work, because it's helping you understand your body on an energetic level so that you can make the best, most empowered decisions for your body rather than just taking everything and trying it all. It's just, you have to figure out, take what works for you and understand that some things just don't.
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's talk about human design just a little bit. And just for your reference, Hope, I do have, gosh, do I have one or two? I feel like I know I have at least one really in-depth
Mhm.
episode just dedicated to human design. So people that are listening, if you're like, well, I didn't hear that, we'll go back and listen to it. So we won't go into like all the nuts
Yeah.
and bolts of
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it is so that we can dig a little bit deeper onto how we
Yeah.
can use it. So
For
maybe
sure.
just like a 20-second, like, remember this is what human design is. And
Yes.
then tell us how can we use human design, especially specifically for our own wellness.
Yeah. So just a quick little definition. So basically, human design is your energetic blueprint. It's the energetic blueprint of your soul, right? So it's combining some of these ancient teachings like the chakra system and astrology, the Kabbalah tree of life, the I Ching, with things like neuroscience and quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and it puts it all together in this body graph, right? So this is like how you were designed to be energetically. It's like your energetic at a DNA level, how your body interacts with the world around you, the energy around you, and how you're here to be on this planet. And so I love looking at wellness through the lens of human design. Because if we look at what causes dis-ease in the body, right? Dis-ease in the body. We spend a lot of our time, a lot of our lives acting in a way that isn't necessarily in alignment with our design, right? Living by the shoulds. And now you've probably heard that term, and we say that term all the time, when you should yourself, right? Living according to the shoulds. It's basically, it's like just the mindset of like, I should do things this way. I should live my life this way. I should, right? When we're shoulding ourselves rather than like, what is my body telling me to do? This is when we start to meet resistance. We start to meet resistance and we start to feel frustrated by the lack of progress or, patterns of maybe some not so great decisions, right? We start to meet these things. When we hit this resistance over and over again, this is what causes dis-ease in the body. We're spending an excessive amount of energy being someone that we are not designed to be. And our physical body is gonna show us that. Like, it's gonna end up manifesting in our physical body. So I believe this is really at what I said at the very beginning, like how we have this energetic, emotional root cause of physical symptoms. It starts with this. And for me, the key to unlocking all of this is human design. It's understanding how we do best make decisions and how we best communicate and how, your best environment for eating and moving your body, and how we're designed to show up in our relationships, how we're designed to show up, in our business or our job, our career. Like, all of these pieces allow for a more free flowing energy throughout the body. Like, it's really about just keeping that life force energy flowing in the body. And that's what creates ease in the physical body. We allow that free flow of life force energy, and we're not shooting ourselves and doing things in a way that it's like ignoring the signals that your body's sending you that this doesn't feel like the best way to do things, right? And I think that's where it comes from, is we we live in a world that's very analytical, right? It's very mental. We live in a very mental world, and we've become so disconnected from our bodies. And that's really one of the big things that I want my clients to lead with, is understanding what it is like to be in your body and to feel what's happening in your body. And that's how you really learn to understand and embody your human design, is listening to your body. Because, like, just for thinking about just making decisions, so your authority in human design, your authority is how you best make decisions. And all of that, no matter what your type is, no matter what your human design is, all of it requires you being in your body. There is no such thing as mental projection. We are not, or mental authority. We're not supposed to make decisions from our mind. Our mind is where we kind of roll around ideas. Like, one of my mentors called it like a playground. But our body is where we make the decisions. And so it's understanding what it means to be in our body, to make decisions and feel things and feel how we're meant to move through life. That's really the key of keeping that life force energy free flowing in the body. So that was a very long-winded way to answer your question, but it really, for me, it's just there are specific aspects we can look at in your chart that tie into specific wellness pieces. But overall, it's just understanding, putting all those pieces together to allow for more ease in the energetic body, which allows for more ease in the physical body.
Yeah, I love that explanation because, when you're talking about disease, which is
Mm-hmm.
disease, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
all disease is caused by stress. Every
Mm-hmm.
single
Yep.
thing that's ever gone wrong with you is because of stress. And when we think
Yep.
stress, we think, "Oh, I'm stressed out." Well, okay, yeah, but there's some kind of
The
stress in
why.
your
Mm-hmm.
body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not just, "Oh, you were stressed out." Maybe it's, you've been eating a diet full of sugar, and that is putting stress on your
Mm-hmm.
internal organs and functions. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not all just like mental stress, although that's part
Yes.
of it too. So
Mm-hmm.
every time that there's some kind of something that isn't flowing right, you're creating the potential for sometimes giant problems that could
Mm-hmm.
lead to chronic conditions or
Yep.
cancer, and then ultimately death, because you don't have, things aren't flowing the right way. So that just
Right.
makes so much sense to me that we would want to have our bodies working optimally, functioning
Mm-hmm.
optimally. I mean, a lot of you that are listening already are pretty cognizant of the fact that you should eat healthy. And so I know a lot of my listeners try. I mean, we're,
Yeah.
cake is yummy
Yeah.
too, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
maybe
It's all
not
the
all day,
balance.
every day. Right.
That's
But,
it.
I know a lot of my listeners work out. Some I
Mm-hmm.
think have shared with me, they listen to this while they go for walks, this podcast, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop there. You can't just take care of just the physical body. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where, human design is so opens that up to so much more, to not just, okay, I'm going to take care of my physical body. Okay, I went for a walk and now I'm going to sit and meditate, which is good and great for you. But it's bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about how am I operating in the world? How am I showing up for myself? How am I
Mm-hmm.
interacting with others? What kind of occupation do I have? Am I honoring the way that I am meant to function in the world?
Exactly.
And that's human design, which is so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that human design it's come into all of our lives fairly recently. So it's not like we were just born and said, okay, well, I'm a generator, so here I
Right.
go. So
Right.
Hope, I'm curious, in your own personal life, how has human design changed things for you?
Yeah. So I think the biggest where the first shift was really how I was operating my business, like running a business, and how I was showing up in my business. And I mentioned earlier that I'm a manifesting generator. And I think this was kind of the first light bulb moment for me, because I used to get so frustrated with myself and annoyed with myself because I've always been like, oh, I want to do this and this and this and this. And then I'd be like, no, like just pick one thing and stick with it. But I could never force myself to do that. And so, like, learning that piece about me was so validating, like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And then, like, so many unfinished projects, and then learning, like, oh, that's kind of like, the signature quality of a manager. It's like, you don't have to finish all the things if it's not letting go anymore. So I think that was the big thing, is understanding my type as a manager and what that means, and being, multi-passionate and multifaceted, and like moving from one thing to the other, and like not really ADD. I just like to do all the things. And, so I think that was the big piece in honoring that part. And then I think, the more I learned about, my authority and strategy and profile and all the other pieces of it, it just allowed me more the validation, for sure, of like, it's a lot of, and I think that's for a lot of people, it's like just honoring the parts of yourself that you've either like tried to push away or shove aside or ignore, or like, oh no, that's not me. It's like, no, this is how I'm designed. Like, I'm divinely designed to operate like this, and I'm going to own it. And so just being able to take that into business. And then relationships, I think, is another thing. And I did a retreat last month, and we dove into individual human design, but we also looked into human design of, their spouses and partners, and some of them had kids, and understanding like how that helps you navigate relationships and how you communicate with them. And it's like, one of the gals said at the retreat, she's like, I have so much more like compassion and tenderness for my husband, and understanding like this. She's like, these parts drive me crazy, but now I get it. Like, this is how. So just being able to like, if you have a family, if you have like a team, if you run a business, like understanding these pieces of those people that you work the most with, or that you're the closest with, I mean, it can really change the dynamic of how you run your relationships and how you honor relationships between other people. Just understanding why they operate the way they do, how they operate, like, and being able to kind of um like adjust how you communicate and things with them in that way, I think. And that's been a game changer for me too, and helping my husband understand like his and mine, and the ways that we're different. And I mean, it can shift everything just
Yeah.
from understanding each other better.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Understanding and understanding yourself better, and then that's going to help you
Hmm.
understand each other better. And yes,
Hmm.
all of that. I
Hmm.
know. I am not the human design expert, so you might have to correct me here. But so I have a 1-3
Uh-huh.
profile,
Yeah.
which if I think that's where this comes from. So if I'm wrong, you can just tell me. But I have, so like this podcast has a very broad title, and
Hmm.
I did that
Hmm.
on purpose, because at that point in my life I had realized that kind of like you, what you're talking about, I
Hmm.
don't so much start all these projects, but like I have to know about everything. Like I
Yeah, you want to
find
know?
like a
That's your one
topic.
line.
Yeah, that's there it
Uh-huh.
is. It's the one.
Yeah.
So like human
Uh-huh.
design, like so interested in it, bought
Yeah.
books on it,
Yeah.
dove so deep into it, but like, well, I don't want to like coach people on
Right,
it.
right,
I
right. Just
just
want to
I
know
just need to know
it.
everything
Yep.
about it. And then once I feel like, all right, I got it, I'm on to the
Yep.
next. Like, what
Hmm.
else can I learn about? Let me learn everything about this
Totally.
next thing. And that's part of
Yes.
why I love this podcast. People talk to me about it all the time. I'm like, my podcast is one of my absolute favorite things I do, because
Hmm.
I am getting to learn from experts on these topics that I'm interested in, and
Yes.
like kind of go deep and ask more of these questions. But I couldn't just do a podcast on human design, let's say, or
Yeah.
just a
Yeah, yeah.
podcast on nutrition. And
Right.
I would be over it so fast
Yes.
because I need
Yes.
all those
Yes.
different things. But that's
Hmm.
part of my, once I learned that, I was like, oh, that's why. And then it made it it's more freeing. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
yeah, this is it. It's almost like a permission slip to
Absolutely.
say, yeah, no, this is, and it just feels right to
Yes.
honor that,
Yes.
when you can go that way.
That's
And
exactly
I'm
it.
sure I've shared this before on this podcast, but in that, one of the books that I got on human design, this has always stuck with me. There's an example of a man who, and I don't know what his thing, I don't know if he was a
Hmm.
generator or whatever. I'm
Hmm.
not, I
Hmm.
can't tell you that part.
Hmm.
But he was at work. He was doing really, really well working with projects, and
Hmm.
they promoted him. Um, and it turned out he was really great at starting the projects, but they promoted him to
Mhm.
overseeing the completion of the projects.
Mm.
And he started struggling to the point where
Yeah.
he almost got canned. And it's like, holy cats, like he just got this promotion because he was so good. And then now
Yeah.
he's like struggling. But he,
Yep.
during that time, had gone and learned about human design and worked with a coach or someone, and discovered that no, your thing is startup. Like you need
Yes.
to be you're the
Let's start
startup
it.
guy. And that's where
Mhm.
he thrived. So he
That's
went back to
awesome.
his work and he was like, hey, listen, can I get moved to just where we start up projects?
Mhm.
And they were like, all right. And then he just thrived from there. So
Yeah.
it's just
That's
kind of
amazing. I love it.
knowing and honoring and
Yep.
then letting that
Yep.
energy flow a little more. It just it feels so much better when
It
you
really
can
does.
go that way.
It really does. And I mean, like I said, it's really about feeling in your body. And I had a girl was on my retreat and she said the same thing. Like we are talking through her design, these pieces. And she's like, all this time I felt like I had anxiety. Like she's like, I've honestly been thinking about going to the doctors. I feel like I had anxiety. And I just realized like I've been pushing against everything I should be not pushing against. So
Yeah.
it's just that freedom of like, oh, okay, now I get
Yeah.
it. Now I understand me.
Yes. Yeah. So I have one final question for you. And this is a question I ask everyone. And that is, what is one thing you wish everyone would do in regards to their own well-being?
I wish people would listen to their bodies and listen to their own bodies. And I talk a lot about intuition, in my world, in my work, in my podcast and stuff. But I don't know, I think that can be kind of just like a fluffy, like, oh, listen to your intuition. But it's really about listening to your body and listening to the signals. And I think so many of us, especially in the Western world, get into chronic symptoms and chronic disease because we've shut that part out, right? And like I said, it's conditioning of just this fast-paced world. And we live in, like I said, this mental world where it's just we're all in our heads. But when we can get down into our bodies and really listen to our intuition, like your body has all the answers. And I know you've probably read or heard of the book The Body Keeps the Score, which is
Yeah.
it's a really good book. But it's a really good illustration of just how the body does have all the answers. And so when we're able to listen to our body and listen to the signs and the signals that it's giving you, it's going to tell you what's right and what's not right for you. It's going to tell you what's good and what's not good for you. It has all the answers. So yeah, that's my advice, is just listening to your body, listening to your intuition, and getting to a place where you trust that voice, that intuitive voice, and kind of shutting out the noise of conditioning in society and being able to let that be kind of like your guiding light.
Yeah. Oh, I love that answer. I love it. I I feel like all these questions that I've asked you, the ones that like I knew the answer, like I would have the knowledge to have an answer
Mhm.
for, I feel like we've answered them the same. Which,
Oh, I love it.
I feel like
Kindred
it's
spirits.
great to yeah, it's great to like interview people that are totally different, but like
Yes.
once in a while it's nice to have somebody where you're
Yeah.
like, yes, me
Yes.
too. You're
Yeah.
like me, but in Texas. But
Exactly.
so I super appreciate you being on the show today,
Yeah.
Hope. If people are listening and they're like, oh, I need a functional nutritionist, or I need a human design gal, or whatever, how can they find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at the Hope Pedraza. My website is hopefulandwholesome.com. And then, like we said, I have a podcast. It's the Hopeful and Wholesome podcast. You can find me there too.
Awesome. And I will put some links in the show notes so people can find you with the click of a button. And Hope, thank you again so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Mindy. Thanks for having me.
And everybody else that's listening, I hope that you are having a fantastic day, and I will catch you on the next one.